I'm live. Thank you for joining me on this Friday night. Hope that you can hang around for a few minutes and listen to what I have to say. If you think I have something to say that's important, and I think I do. Thank you for joining me. Ah. uh, what I have to say today is going to be interesting because I'm watching the news and PJ, he pays attention to foreign news stations more than he does American news stations. I don't do American news too much because of sometimes it's biased agendas. What I want to talk about is because I'm a retired theologue, and I'd really appreciate if you write in your comments after you figure out I'm on, because I never advertise. I just thought that I'd come on this Friday night. What is today? Kind of hard for me to. Oh, it's the 10th. It's the 10th of November, Veterans Day weekend. Thank you for all of those of you that know that I served in the armed forces of the United States of America. I think I was a pretty good soldier. I had an honorable discharge, though some would think that it was not, but it was. Um, I enjoyed my tour in the Army, but I don't want to talk about that. As you can see from the title, Apocalyptos. I don't know whether you saw Mel Gibson's film, but in that film, it was plain that the Mayan tribe that came into Jaguar Paul's village to decimate their culture had an intent. This was before Mexico had become Mexico. Before that, it was Incan and Mayan people that were there. We have some of the monuments still standing to prove that that culture was there, and we can appreciate that culture. Let me try to put a little bit more light on over here so you can, yeah, that's good.
Kaylin Mitchell.
Uh, Wait a minute. Let me answer this a little bit and see what's happening. Hey, what's happening, Kaylin?
Hey John, do you mind checking the refrigerator for me? The second drawer from or the first drawer at the bottom, and see if I still have broccoli in there.
Well, I can't do it right now because I'm doing a webcast right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Uh, but I'll check it and I'll.
No, it's all good. I'm gonna just cook with what I have there.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye. Okay, I can take care of that. Now I can continue to go. Um, In that movie, Apocalypto, Mel Gibson did it. A brilliant movie, I might ask. One of my favorites. There was an erasure of a culture that was taking place. And I recall when the movie came out, I went to see it at a theater. And I think on one of my sound webcasts a number of years ago, I pointed out to the audience that when I went to see the film, the last scene of the film, Jaguar Paul's wife asked him when she saw a European Spanish ship, I believe it was, pull up on the shores of their islands. She asked her husband, could could they go to the men on the ships? And I remember after watching the whole film, oh, you know me, I apologize if this embarrasses you, but I got to make sure that I'm handling things right. She asked a question of her husband, Jaguar Paul, should we go to them? And I recall because the movie theater was packed that night, and I was up in the balcony, and I recall saying with a loud voice, hell no. Apocalypto is a good movie. It taught me something. If you saw the movie, I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm still suffering from what I told you I was suffering from the last time we spoke. It really becomes more difficult for me to watch the news and to watch people die the way they are and are dying. But I want to ask you some questions. Because I recall in one of the clips, the head of the Israeli government over there was saying that, well, he tried to use the Bible to justify what he was, what they were doing to preserve their land. You know, to use the Bible when these terrible things are happening as a justification to allow you to do that without anybody checking you is ridiculous. But I would say, and I'm trying to be fair because a friend of mine from the DC area reminded me of some scriptures that I had read many years ago and know the meaning of it. And these three scriptures, I believe, speak prophetically about what we're confronted with today in our world. I think I said it on my last webcast. If they don't check what they're doing over there, this could kick off World War III. And YouTube has some excellent docu-series on World War II and World War One. You can go to this network and find out what started the world wars, what was going on in the world. And I was watching that this week because I'm trying to make sure that I have my mind right. It is very difficult for me to watch those things, what's happening with the war in Palestine and Israel over there, because I was so uniquely connected with the land and the people through my studies in theology and in my, uh, how can I say it, in my, well, my connection. Jacob, Esau, Sarah, the Egyptians, Abraham, all that. It's fresh in my mind and I can't help it. I see I have one person listening in. Yep, just try to follow me. I want to read some text that a friend of mine sent me from the East Coast today, and I'll give my comment about the text. I want you to listen to this. This is Jesus speaking in John chapter 8, verse 44. It's always good, which I taught in my classes when I taught theology, to know who the speaker is, who he's speaking with, and why he was having that particular conversation. Now, this is the way John chapter 8, verse 44 reads. You are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Can you tell me who Jesus was referring to when he was speaking? Now, listen, the beginning of the verse says, you are of your father, the devil. So Jesus was speaking with someone. If I had my students of theology on with me, they would be able to tell me who Jesus was speaking about. I'll read it again. I want you to get your focus because there's nobody on with me live. And so after the fact, people would look at this. And since I was a pastor in the evangelical church and I taught Christians and I taught homiletics and I taught the Bible, any good Bible student should know who the hell I'm talking about. I'll read the verse again. And I want you to think along with me. And as a matter of fact, if you don't think I'm reading it properly, I'll scoot back and get my Bible and I'll read it from the Bible that I have in my office here. And so that you won't think that I'm giving you a bad line or something, because I don't want to do that. I want to just give it to you like it is. What's that? That was John chapter 8, verse 44. And that's found in your New Testament. John chapter 8, verse 44. And I'll read it to you from the New American Standard rendering. And when you go to John chapter 8, verse 44, you see that it's in red letters. That means since it's in red letters, Jesus was speaking. Now, a good homiletician would go to the first part of the chapter and start reading down to see who Jesus is talking about. And I'm talking to American Christians, preferably the evangelicals, that I don't know, it seems when I hear of them, they don't seem to be able to, how can I say, they don't seem to be able to uh, read the text appropriately. Let me read it in the NASB. You are of your father, the devil. Now, he was talking with somebody. So let me read the verse. And I think that this English transliteration is far better than any other transliteration that I can possibly read. You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. Now, if you are a good student, you'd have to ask, and I'm talking to you evangelical Christians out there, who is the writer John talking to? Who? And then he says, he was a murderer. He's talking about the father of these people, because he said, you are the, you, you are of your father, the devil. In other words, he's saying, the one that fathered you, that gave you, listen to me, evangelical church, because you see, I taught you the book, you know the book, I want you to reason with me. When Jesus says you, who is the you in the text? Who is he talking to? And why is he saying what he's saying? And did they understand it? Follow me through. You are of your father, the devil. You've got to come to who the you is, since you want to believe in the Bible, right? And then he says, and you, he repeats it, want to do the desires of your father. So if the devil is this person's father, and well, who wouldn't want to do the desires of their father? My daddy told me, boy, you got to get a job when I graduated from high school. I got one, and I worked at it. And I worked at it until I reached the age of retirement. I was of my father John. Listen. And then it says, now, Jesus is still speaking about their father. And he says, he was a murderer from the beginning. You know what a murderer is? A murderer is one who takes one's life and did it in a way that's so outrageous that the person didn't have, well, you know what a murderer is. He creeps in on you. He takes you out when you're not ready to see him. Said, look at that, look at that. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth. In other words, Jesus says the entity that you follow couldn't stand for the truth, meaning that they never told the truth, that everything that you say is a lie and you perpetrate it. And then it says, because there is no truth in him. Now, if you evangelicals believe, as I believe, Jesus is the closest thing to God that I think any of us are going to come in contact with. He is the closest historical figure that is closer to God than anybody else that we ever know. And then Jesus goes on and says, whensoever he speaks a lie, speaking about these individuals' father, he speaks from his own nature. In other words, he says the nature of these people is that they lie. For he is a liar and the father of lies. Oh my God, I say, you may say, John, who is suffering under this type of accusation? Man, these are some serious statements here. Who are these people that Jesus is talking about? Well, that's what we're talking about now. All right, I got another one. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Go there. Evangelicals, the ones that listen to PJ, Pastor John, and said, well, you're not pastoring the church anymore. You came out and said this about your private life, so you got to be lost altogether, John. You're right. Let me tell you something. There's many things in this book I still believe because I cannot comprehend how it got there and why it's so factuous. In other words, the facts are staring you dead in the face and I can't get away from it. So, what? This next one, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. Now, again, I'm going to have to go to it in my book because I'm reading it on my phone. And, I don't trust telephone Bibles. No. But somebody send me this. I don't think he would send me a bomb text. But I want to read it to my evangelical friends, to my Christian friends that say that they believe in Jesus, but they may be a little confused right now because I know how easy it is to become confused. I know how that is. So much is going on in our world today, and it would deem us as responsible individuals to check ourselves out. Now, I went to Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and I'm reading it and to show you it's the red letter edition. So that means that those are the words of Christ. Jesus is speaking again. And I know that most evangelical Christians in this country embraces the scriptures. I was a believer and I yet embrace the scriptures, though not all of them because of the transliteration and the ambiguity of some of the passages. I'm a theologue and I studied that and I have a right. See, I don't believe in the day age theory. I don't believe in that. The day age theory is that the world and the universe all came together in 7 days. No, I don't adopt that view. Not at all. And I have a right, and it's my duty as I study this to address certain things. I'm trying to help you. Now let's look at chapter 2 of the book of Revelation, verse 9. And again, I ask you, who was the writer? Who was he writing to? And what was his reason for writing? And who was he addressing? The verse reads like this, chapter 2, verse 9. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the blasphemy of those by those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of a synagogue of Satan. This is in the text. I'll read it again. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the blasphemy by those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. I'm going to tell you, if you're a theologue, you've got to research this. I had to when I was in grad school. I said, what does he mean by the synagogue of Satan? What? You say you're Jews, but you're not. What are you talking about? So you know what that forced me to do? That forced me to do a personal study. What kind of different? Well, let me first say this. Whenever you read the term Jews, and it comes in the red letter edition where you see Jesus talking, like in the book of John, and we see here he speaks of the Jews, he wasn't speaking of the Hebrews. He was speaking of, and you can get any theologue in any seminary or grad school, you can check with them on this, and they're going to tell me John is right. Whenever you see the term Jews, especially used by John, and since John wrote the book of John and the book of Revelation, whenever you see the argumentative Jews back and forth, Jesus was not speaking about the Hebrew people. Jews were always referred to as the religious people. I want you to wrap your mind around this. They were always referred to as the religious sect of the Hebrew people. And that's important for you to know because you have to do the research. And when defining this verse, I'll read it again. It says, I know your tribulation and your poverty. And then he says, but you are rich. And the blasphemy by those who say they are Jews and are not, but a synagogue of Satan. Now, here it appears that Jesus is saying that some of the people that he was speaking with some 2,000 years ago in Israel, because John was taken a prisoner on the isle on Patmos, and that's where they attempted. Some people think he died on Patmos because he was killed, because John was somewhat like me, had my name, PJ, Pastor John. John would say things and it would cause people to, oh my God, what is the implication of this? Now, I didn't think about doing this, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into another room and get my commentary, and I'm going to read the transliteration from uh, the Greek. And I'm not going to shut this off. I'll leave it on and let it play. And I like you, especially you pastors, if you want to, go and get your books, and so that you can follow along with me, because I think that we need to get that story straight. So let me go in there and get the book, and I'm going to try to transliterate Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and so that you will understand exactly what's happening here. Because I don't want to make a mistake and say anything like this. And then I want to raise this premise as a question. I was in the Army. This is Veterans Day weekend. I was in the Army. I was a soldier. I was in the Signal Corps. If I were told that I was in the Army and I had to go in and do what that Mayan man did to the Mayan Indians in Mexico in Mel Gibson's movie, if I was a part of that band of murderers that went in, and if my commander told me to kill all those innocent people in that village, women and children and whatnot, I would not do it. And what I would do to claim my justification for not doing it, I would let him know that I am a Christian and I cannot. I could see it if someone was after me, if someone had smashed my wife's face in and I caught up two of them in the car and I'm angry at the moment and I picked up a baseball bat, bludgeoned them, and rightly so if he off my lady like that. I think I have a conscionable right to defend her. But if my commander told me to kill up all the women with children, I would flat out refuse. And I would claim as my right to do so, that my God would not be pleased with that. Reading this book again, the Bible. And you know, a lot of people have been looking to the Bible here lately since this conflict has been going on over there. A lot of people look into the Bible. Well, let's not, hey, I could pick a verse too. Evangelicals, I want you to think. Because if you were in my Bible study class, you know that you'd get a fail if you didn't answer the question right. Let me read another verse to you. I'll go get the commentary later. Listen to this. Just go one chapter over to Revelation chapter 3, because, of course, we know that this verse that I just read, Revelation 2 and 9, that was written to the church at Smyrna. The angel of the Lord had appeared to John on Patmos and told him to write down these things because I want you to give it to, let's put it this way, the pastor of the church in these areas. Bible is also an historical book. Get your historicity correct. What bothers me is that America, I don't know what's wrong with this. We used to be a scholarly kind of people that thought scholastically about things. We didn't just, my God, I don't want to lose my track of thought, but let me give you something else to think about. Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. Just go over a chapter, and Jesus is giving a scathing moment here. I'm going to read it from my NASB so that you can get it. Behold, I will cause those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them to come and bow down at your feet and to know that I have loved you. Now, in verse 9, I need you to tell me who are the ones in the synagogue of Satan that say that they are Jews and are not. And why would he make, I will make them come, and why would Jesus, because it's in red, make them come and bow down at these people, whoever they are, and I know who they are. He said, I'm going to make them. And this is a prophetic text. This is a text that screams to be heard in the future. Now, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go get my further commentaries, because I think that some of you that took classes with me know that PJ don't just be talking to talk. And the Bible is a mysterious book unless you really know exegesis, Greek, historical, linguistical, those kind of background checks. I'm trying to help you because a lot of us are making decisions in our mind about what's going on in our present world today, and we are not thinking rationally. I'm gonna read it to you again. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. This is Jesus saying what he's gonna turn somebody into. I'm gonna make them into the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews. In other words, these people say they are Jews. He says, I'm not going to let nobody take your identity from you. No, 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 no. You know who you are. They know who they are. And I know who they are. And they know I know who they are. And I'm coming in a future way. Preachers, listen to me, because you evangelical pastors here in the country need to have this as a topical sermon for your people on Sunday morning. You need to throw out all that garbage you talking about, stump out sickness, claim your healing, and all that son of a sea biscuit kind of talk. You need to find a text that'll preach itself. And this one does. This is why. This is why historically, not the Hebrew people, but the religious Jews, not the Hebrew people. Hebrew people, Hebrew people would not reject this. The Hebrew people would say, I know exactly what he's talking about. But every time the Hebrew people step forward and says, I'm of the real Hebrew thing. No, you not. They say things like, your skin is too dark. You don't have a recorded history. That's not you. Look here. I don't want to shut it off and start again. There's something happened. I hear helicopters flying all around. Something must have happened down there on Slauson and Crenshaw again. I hear the helicopters swirling. I'm living in a terrible world. Let me go get my book and let me read that to you, because I think it's important to give you, and it's really the best commentary that I have on the book of Revelation. And I paid $49 a volume, so I'm not going to play with that. I won't play any music interlude. You will see. I'll be right back. Let me see. That's Revelation that I have to bring. And John. Okay. I'll be back in a minute. Don't go nowhere. I'll be back. Don't go nowhere. I had to tell them to wait because I had to come in here and get a book. Wait for me. I'll be back. Don't go nowhere. I gotta get my flashlight so I can see what titles I'm looking for. And the reason that I'm doing this for you guys is because nobody else is doing it. That's why I'm doing it. I had to get my flashlight so I can know what I'm looking at. Hang in there. All right. I'm coming back, people. I'm coming back. I told you I would return when I have to dig in my library. It's kind of dark in there, and I had to get two texts. Oh. Now let's deal with the Revelation text. All right? And I have an advantage because I can do that. The first one was Revelation 2 and 9. All right. Let's see what it says. Here we go. Listen to this. The Christians in Smyrna were workers for the Lord, but they were suffering a great deal of tribulation in the form of persecution. Listen to me. These persecutions affected their jobs and reduced them to poverty. Does that sound familiar? Okay. They were also persecuted by Christ rejecting Jews. Remember what I told you the definition of Jews were? Okay. Those were the religious people. All right. Who claimed to worship God, but who really were under the control of Satan. All right. Listen, like the Jews, the religious section that ran the culture of Jerusalem at that time, sought to, like the Jews who sought to kill Jesus, they were of their father, the devil. That's what we read in John chapter 8 and verse 34 to verse 44. All right? And it says they were actually dishonoring God by their treatment of believers. This is very important for you to know this. And I'm reading this right out of the commentary, and there's a commentary right there. Let me turn around so you can see that up. There it is. There's a biblical commentary right there that I'm reading from. I'm not making this up. You can't buy this library anymore, but you can get it on a CD. Okay. When I was a pastor, I have every book in the Bible, every word in the Bible, not only the transliteration here, and if you don't think I'm telling the truth, here are my Hebrew conscripts, because when I study theology and I get trapped up on something, I can always go to my Hebrew and do the history of it and get the right claim of it. Now let me continue to read. It says, a short time after this, Polycarp, if you know anything about Roman and Christian history, Polycarp was, well, let me read this. Polycarp, who lived about AD 69 to AD 156, became bishop or pastor of the church at Smyrna. As Polycarp, that was in the Colosseum, and um, they burned him, but he wouldn't die. If you know anything about that, evangelical Christians should know all of this. All right, then it says, he was taught by several of the apostles, especially the apostle John at Ephesus. He pastored in a very dangerous period, but he was faithful in teaching the truths of the gospel that had been passed on to him. When he was finally martyred by the Romans, he refused to save his life by denouncing Christ. Then the Christ rejecting Jews of Smyrna broke the Sabbath in order to bring the wood needed to burn him to death. You see what the religious and not the real Jews do? They brought the wood to burn Polycarp up. Here's my question. Do you think that after doing that, and this is a question to you evangelicals, that watch me but don't want to get real. Do you think that God was for the burning of Polycarp in the arena in front of all the people there, and that historically saying now, and Josephus can probably write about that too, when you do his historical backdrop of what was happening to the Jews. And this was taken from the Ante-Nicene Fathers, talking about the martyrdom of Polycarp. And so we see what that verse is referring to. Let me go back to it so that you know. And I know your works and your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews. He's talking about those religious Jews, and are not. They are of the synagogue of Satan. I got less than 10 minutes to go. Well, let me read chapter 3, verse 9. Let me go to that quickly. And I should read it to you in the Greek. And so you can get a real good mental picture of what I'm talking about. And I want you to keep in mind that I am in my teaching mode. All right. Revelation 3:9 says, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Here again, who is the writer? Who is he writing to? Why did he write to the church at Smyrna this way? And who are these religious Jews as compared to the true Hebrews that region? I think I said enough. I rest my case. I rest my case. But let me read the commentary on Revelation 3:9. There was a serious conflict between the church at Philadelphia and the synagogue of the Jews. But Jesus told his followers that they were victorious, that the Jews would bow down before the believers and acknowledge Christ's love for them as an interesting Old Testament background. Many passages refer to Israel's triumph over the enemies in the end times. Then the Gentiles will come and bow down before her. And then they use the reference of Isaiah 45:14. Now, I know what those verses say, but you must keep in mind who are the Hebrew people. Are the people in the Mayan and Incan territories, the continent of South America, could it be said that they are Mexicans? Are those Mayan people, are those people still there? who are the original people of any land. That's what we have to come to recognize. Place that, place that out there. I want to thank the person for sending me these scriptures. They're relatively conclusive. I understand it, but I have a greater question. This is my question as I end up with 5 minutes left, because I'm not going to go more than an hour. And here's my question. Could a person that says that they love God, I don't care what anybody does to you. You know, somebody does something to me, yeah. I feel like I want to fight back at him and get back at him, right? I want to give them the payback for the damage that they caused to me. I understand that. But am I going to kill the innocents? I remember when this whole thing got started, when the warriors of Hamas attacked the citizens of Israel at a rock concert, shot up a whole bunch of folk. I know about that because that happens in this country too, all the time. Somebody's getting shot up. Hamas didn't deny that they did it. That was wrong when it comes to humanitarian practices. That was wrong. And I believe in that adage, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You knock my teeth out, I'll knock your teeth out. I agree with that. This is more than an eye for an eye. If this mess don't stop, I believe it's going to thrust us all into worldwide conflict. Because that kind of hatred, that's what it does. But then you may say, on the Palestinian side, well, don't they have a right? They're living in deluge and slavery now. And I think about it, that kind of apartheid law came to this country, and I fell under a jurisdiction of a minority, and they come and put me out of my house and put me in a camp. Living would be difficult, and people reach their limit. Thank God we haven't heard that all the hostages have been killed. But I'm seeing a lot of dead babies. And I don't think that's the love of God. I don't think that God is on the side of anything like that. No, no. Evangelicals in your churches, try to preach on these verses. Educate your people. Because when I talk with your people that you have in your churches, and they don't know what's going on. Just something to give some thought about. But look up a good commentary on the book of John. They're out there where they can explain when Jesus speaks to the people of Israel and to the Jews at Israel as two different groups. Do your research on that and then get back with me and let me know what you think. And I think all this stuff should stop. And if they don't stop it, it's going to sprout out into worldwide chaos. And I believe I'm right about it. God bless you. And thank you for coming to my website, spending some time. Please tell your friends about this cast. And I'm kind of glad I didn't have anybody on with me live. I want you to think about these things. God bless.